Hello friends, welcome to Nightmare Patrol. If you enjoy horror stories, don't forget to leave a like because today I have another chilling tale for you. Before we begin, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Are you in a big city or somewhere more remote? Drop a comment below so we can see how far this story reaches. Oh, and if you're not subscribed yet, consider joining us. That way, you won't miss any of the spine-tingling stories to come. Now turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let's dive into tonight's terrifying tale. While the water soaked the soil of my garden, an old memory sprouted like a weed in my mind. Something forgotten, something that should never have been remembered. I ran inside, my heart racing, and began searching the internet. I needed to know if anyone else had seen this before. After an hour of fruitless searching, I finally found a strange account. A man was talking about something frightening plants that grew in the shape of hands, and over time, they began to create replicas of people. My blood ran cold. It brought me back to the past. This had happened before. In the 70s, 80s, and even into the early 2000s, tobacco was the main crop in our region. Most local families depended on the money earned from selling tobacco in the fall to survive the winter and provide Christmas for their children. It was a way of life. Throughout the spring, families worked to set up floating beds, polystyrene trays containing 24 tobacco plant seedlings that would float on the water with nutrients added within platforms built for that purpose. While the seedlings took off, the winter clover crop was plowed under the soil to add more nutrients. The field would be plowed at the beginning of spring. Then, when the seedlings had developed a root system, the fields would be plowed again, cut, and furrowed into rows. The plants would be manually placed, typically. Later on, people had access to tractor attachments that could accommodate 2 people. These 2 people would pull the plants from the floating trays, place them on a wheel, and the machine would drop them onto the ground at a certain distance apart. The plants would be left to grow until they developed flowering heads. The tops would be cut or pulled by hand to make the plant grow. A few months later, the farmers would drop sticks in alternating rows. Then, the workers would cut the plants and throw them through the stalk to the branch. The cutters wielded very sharp and specialized tools called tobacco knives. Each worker would cut 2 rows at a time, earning a few cents per stick. Each stick held 6 to 8 tobacco stems. The sticks were left in the field for a few weeks before being collected and hung on the beams of a barn to cure. By late fall, workers would climb into the barns, dropping the sticks. Then people would pull the leaves from the stalks and press them into bales. Each plant has several types of leaves, and each type was placed into its own bale. The bales were then transported to auction, where tobacco companies would bid on the lot. I describe the process so you can see how hard these families worked for that little bit of money. In some years, the price was 0, 50 per pound, and in some years it was over 1.00 per pound. That's why there are different bales for different leaves. The best leaves brought in more money, but the companies also wanted the other leaves, what we called the junk, but only at a much lower price. The families worked hard, lived long, and barely survived. At that time, most local families lived at or below the national poverty line. Hard times everywhere. The classic money's tight and times are tough, so here's your damn Christmas card kind of situation. It had to be mid-spring of 1988 when this happened. I remember it because I had recently gotten married, just a few months before the first finger was found. In fact, I was on my honeymoon, which we had hoped to afford for financial reasons, when the first calls came in. The mayor and even the county prosecutor were up in arms. I was called at 3 in the morning, after just getting home at 1. I was ordered to do whatever it took but get my happy ass to the department in a hurry. Those bastards hung up on me. When I entered the office, I was a little shaken to see the entire force on standby. The mayor, the police chief, and the county prosecutor, all waiting impatiently for my arrival. I was greeted not by happy friends but by an entire building full of frightened police officers and county authorities. Well, it's about time. Welcome home, Sheriff. Now sit down so we can catch you up on this situation. The county prosecutor barked before turning and leaving the room. 3 days ago, we received the first call. Lawson's farmer called 911, ranting and raving about fingers in the tobacco trays. The dispatch sent an ambulance and a patrol unit, thinking the guy had cut a finger at work. When they got there, the farmer, A Mr. Timothy Gray was sitting on a tractor tire drinking from a glass bottle of whiskey. I feel the need to mention that it was about 7:30 a.m. by now. The EMS techs rushed to their position to examine the possible injury. Now, I'm going to read Mr. Gray's response verbatim. "Not me, you idiot. Look in the beds. Fuck it, I'm done. Tell Lawson to keep the money I made this week." He then emptied the glass bottle and staggered to his trailer on the property. A police officer told him to stay still because he was drunk and would arrest him if he tried to start the truck. It was then that the other deputy decided to investigate. "Collins, tell the sheriff what you found," the mayor ordered. As Collins stood up to speak, the mayor left the room, but when he was leaving, he stopped by my desk and whispered, "Come see immediately after you're informed, but don't tell anyone." As I approached the floating beds, I noticed a strange smell. Like wood smoke, mixed with strong notes of cat urine. Not just the ammonia used in the beds, this was something else. I lifted the plastic covering to examine the trays. And well, I almost shit myself, sir. We were a laid-back agency back then. I couldn't believe what I saw. Fingers. Dozens of them just wriggling, as if a hand was under the trays sticking out fingers. But when I pulled a tray, there was no hand, just fingers. The first joint where the hand would attach was growing in the soil. I yanked one from the ground and well, sir, it was still warm. It had roots, red and things like that. A round thing, like a white bulb where the joint was. It kept wriggling for a while, but I could feel it cooling down and moving more slowly. I don't know why, but I put it back in the tray and placed the tray back in the water. A few seconds later, the finger that was the limousine started moving again. And that's when he passed out. Luckily, EMS was already there. Colin's partner laughed. Todd Stone. While the bus monkeys, that's what we called them, they called us gum machines, checked the light weight over there, I decided to take a look at the floating beds. I can honestly say that was the most disturbing thing I've ever seen, and I cleaned up a cannibalistic murder and suicide alone. But those damn things growing in the trays, just wriggling, reaching for anything that moved. He finished, looking a little more than disgusted. I sent samples of the roots and an entire plant to the college, and they still haven't responded. I can't even get a hold of the professor. From what I could see, and everything I know, those damn fingers are normal, just with some kind of root. Our local coroner said, polishing his glasses. And now, to add to this damned situation, we have 3 more farms in the last 24 hours, all reporting fingers in the tobacco trays. A total of 11 affected farms. Terry, the rookie, said. I sat there trying to decide if this was some damn joke or if it was really happening. I got my definitive answer a few minutes later when the chief returned with a small clay pot. There were 3 fingers in the dirt, just wriggling and, well, looking at me. I swear it sounds like a joke, but I swear those things had eyes. I moved my hand above them and they followed me. I waved at them and they mimicked my movement. I turned them off, 2 fingers bent downward, leaving one standing, kind of dancing in circular movements. I got up and walked with my tired ass to the mayor's office. When I walked through his door, he stood up and walked to the door, locking it behind me. He pointed to a chair and then went back behind his desk. I can tell you need to see the sample. Here, I think we need this. The mayor of the town reached across his desk and served a glass of whiskey for each of us. As we drank, he continued, I think we need to call someone from the Alphabet Squad to handle this, Sheriff. Were they counting on tobacco money? What do we do with them? Half of their crops are fingers, we confiscate all of them, but that doesn't help them at all. Well, do we still have any emergency agricultural funds? I mean, someone pays for crops damaged by mold, right? Oh yeah, sure. The ag department would love to pay for a bunch of crops ruined by a finger infestation. I don't even know who to call about this shit. These things came from somewhere and we need to send them somewhere too. They tried to destroy some, like a containment experiment. They don't burn. The charred remains will reanimate with a single drop of moisture. Cutting them forces them to take root, like eyes, from damn food. The only thing I can think of is trying to gather them up and send them somewhere. I'll look into other ways to help the families. I need you to go to the tax department and get a list of properties with tobacco bases. Then go check them out. I'll try to figure out what to do with these damn things and find a way to supplement the family's income this winter. I finished my drink and left his office, heading to the finance department. I had them print out the list and found that 56 other farms in the county had bases. I split my troops into 7, each taking a cruiser or a municipal truck, and we tackled the list like an 8-headed worm. I took the farthest farms to the east, near a damp municipality. Coincidence? No. My plan to head home that night included large amounts of alcohol. The 8 farms on my list were all dry. I received a radio message from another officer who stopped to assist at the scene of an MVA, so I finished the list for him. At the last farm on his list, I hit the mother lode. All the plants in the beds were waving their fingers. I called the mayor and he sent 4 municipal trucks with plastic in the beds to retain water, and we loaded every one of those fingers into the trucks. The family was devastated. They were counting on that money to live, not for comfort. Food, rent, stuff like that. I cried watching Jeb Tolson, a 63, 290-pound farmer, cry. He was wrecked. He didn't know how he'd feed his family that winter. I gave him my card with my home phone number written on the back, telling him to call me if I could help. On the way back to the warehouse, I contacted our game warden by radio. I told him he needed to be a little more relaxed with some poachers this winter and said that something had gone wrong with a large portion of the population's bases. He supported the idea but said anyone caught and not needing the meat would go to jail, and the meat would go to charity, as usual, for families that need a little extra help. I got back to the warehouse with the evidence just as some of the other guys were returning. In total, after the raid, 36 farms were hit by what was sarcastically dubbed the finger bang. Later, I'd meet some guys the mayor called, and I even called my brother. My brother is weird. He loves carnivorous plants. He has dozens of Venus flytraps, pitcher plants, and some kind of thing that looks like a damn meat flower. The meat flower is disgusting. It smells almost like a corpse flower, but not too strong enough to attract prey. The damn thing closes when stimulated. It's gross. I was hoping maybe he could help. He couldn't. But the damn weirdo needed several fingers to feed his damn plants. I told you, he's weird as hell. However, I got a phone call from dear brother the next day. He tried to feed the meat flower and the pitcher plants with the fingers. Apparently, when the meat flower closed, the finger fell. He managed to let the nail grow enough to have something to cut the petals, while the finger inside the meat flower struggled and fought. The others tried to crawl to the spot as if they wanted to help. But what I found strangest about that phone call was that my brother wasn't scared, just upset because he paid about $3,000 for the meat flower. I told you, weird as hell. We never figured out exactly what those things were. They never grew any bigger. When one sprout dies, a new nail will appear in the dirt within 24 hours. I know they can live for years straight. They don't care about the temperature, but they don't act as vigorously in the intense cold. The vast majority of the fingers were smuggled west, somewhere in the PNW. A few were kept. As mementos and for science, of course. I'm sitting here watching mine wave at me now. I kept 1 black, 1 brown, and 3 whites. Originally, I had 5 white fingers. When one dies, another grows. Not always the same color or sex, not always different. Not all of them have fingerprints. Those that never track anyone, alive or dead. The DNA seems human, but a human that would never survive birth. They don't bloom. They never develop beyond a finger. They don't grow bigger than a normal human finger. The strangest thing, at least to me, is that they don't grow like a human. They sprout an adult nail and then the finger emerges fully over about 24 hours. I never figured out where they came from. We never saw them randomly appear again, and we didn't call the feds. We gathered some money, and all the guys got deer tags and hunted enough. We distributed the meat and the money among the families destroyed by the finger raid, and we helped them buy gifts for their kids for Christmas. And we bought school supplies and some clothes for the kids to start school. We couldn't replace the money they lost, but we helped some. This story follows the debacle of the finger plant. So I was at home, trying to explain to my wonderful wife exactly why I had a finger pot sitting on the patio. I was winning the debate on keeping them when my phone decided to ring once again. I answered with an arrogant attitude and a sarcastic remark like, Am I the only cop you know, damn it? I was greeted with pure ignorance and the coroner's attitude. Look, smartass, you're the damn sheriff. So yeah, basically you're the only cop I know, damn it. So swallow that sarcastic attitude and get your fat ass over to the old Prater farm. Come with code 3 if you want, it's bad. I explained to my wife that I had to go. Being the daughter of a cop before marrying me, she already had a very clear idea of what our life together would be like. As she used to say, I was married to the job, and she was just my mistress. I used to argue this point, but she had the proof. All of it. She was right. But this isn't the story you want to hear, is it? I don't think so. You all want to hear about the latest finger plants, right? Maybe figure out where they came from. Or maybe you just want to see the pictures. Hell, I don't know. Maybe you want to get scared, or even terrified. I want to answer your questions and describe my most terrifying encounters. But first, this one. I arrived at the station, and when I finally got to my desk, I was immediately approached by the coroner. Well, you took long enough, idiot. Come with me, I need to show you something. I followed the big man through the hallways into the elevator. I couldn't help but laugh as I saw the big guy stumbling down the hallway like a duck with a twisted foot. It was even funnier because of the bright yellow scrubs he always wore. During the elevator ride down to the garage, the coroner let out a rather loud, wet fart, then waved his bright yellow scrubs to disperse the sour smell of butt. I was about to tell the disgusting bastard exactly what I thought when he started expelling hot air from the other end. I was called to a natural death recovery this morning and happened to find something I thought you should see. I haven't shown or told anyone else what I'm about to show you. So I get to the scene to collect Mrs. Thompson, and when I get there, her hospice nurse is pacing back and forth in front of the door, eating her own fingers. I tried to get her to show me inside, but she refused to go into the house, gave me her card, and flew out of there. So I grabbed my gurney and a bag, put on gloves, and head to the door. I notice there's a line of flour in front of the door like a barrier. But it's flour, not salt, so I don't know why it's there. I just step over it and go inside. When I walk in, I immediately notice the smell. Not the smell of death, not that easy. The smell of decay. Infection. That could be explained, except Mrs. Thompson had no open wounds and had died only from a terminal brain tumor that had been discovered just a month before. So I was immediately in search and destroy mode. He paused here, and we finally got out of the elevator, which had turned into a gas chamber for the two of us. I keep going through the house looking for the deceased when I find this, he continued, pointing to a table in the corner of the dark, filthy morgue room. On the table was a shape that I recognized in a primal part of my brain, but not on a conscious level. It's a fetus, Sheriff. Not viable, no brain. But that's not the strange part. What's strange is this, he said, and turned the fetus to reveal its backside. From the back and the back of the head, millions of hair-like roots were growing, still full of dirt, and they were actively contracting right in front of us. What the hell is this? First the damn fingers and now this. What's wrong with this town? I asked no one in particular. The coroner continued, saying that Mrs. Thompson had harvested her own eggs. He told me that she had gone as far as removing an ovary and made arrangements with something or someone to provide refrigeration chambers. Now, I have to say that IVF wasn't popular or very effective back then, so having a way to store viable embryos was quite an incredible feat for an ordinary person. He went on to say that he found and confiscated boxes of Betamax tapes showing surgical procedures she had performed both on herself and on others. I didn't ask about it. I was surprised that anyone could stay conscious while cutting themselves so much. I left the coroner's office and drove to the Thompson house on the outskirts of our main town and started snooping around. The smell of decay was still strong in the air of the small farmhouse. I walked into the front room and started looking around. I found books and medical magazines on the female reproductive system and postulating on IVF techniques and procedures. I went through the first door I saw, and it led me to a staircase down to the basement. Down there were stainless steel tables and surgical instruments. Blood stained the floor, and large flower pots and bags of dirt filled the free space. Puzzle pieces started to come together in my head. The fluorescent lights in the ceiling flickered and buzzed, adding to the horrible atmosphere of the underground space. I went over to the nearest pot and used my knife to dig through the soil to inspect the contents of the huge ceramic pot. As I removed the dirt, I found another tiny fetus. This one only had a few hair-like roots and was obviously not as well off as the first one I had seen. I tried using my portable radio to call the coroner, but the reception was so bad that I couldn't even hear the dispatch. I decided to go back upstairs and try again. Before reaching the top step, I felt a blinding pain in the back of my head and saw lights. I lost my balance and slammed into the stairs hard. I rolled onto my back, and as I lost consciousness, I saw a figure approaching me. When I woke up, I was naked and tied to one of the tables in the basement. The lights were still buzzing and flickering, possibly louder than before. I could hear movements, but I couldn't turn my head to see what it was. While I lay there, taking in my surroundings, the buzzing of the lights changed and took on a new quality. It almost sounded like a pair of buzzing noises of different tones, alternating to make a sound. The more I listened, the more it seemed like a conversation. At some point, the buzzing stopped being a priority and my mind wandered. I can still remember that feeling of helplessness, that moment when I thought I might never see my wife again. My eyes filled with tears and a deep, blinding rage filled my entire being. I increased the pressure on my restraints, straining with all my might, but still couldn't move even an inch. It was in that exact moment that I resigned myself to my fate, but decided that I wasn't going to go down easily. I would fight whenever I could. I was still trying to think of a way to fight my situation when the sounds of movement grew closer. I slowed my breathing and did my best to calm myself so I could think more clearly. I steeled my resolve, they say. "Ah, Sheriff, you're awake. Great. I hate working on a quiet piece of meat. So with that in mind, let's get started." A deep, booming voice echoed just above my head. "Well, go ahead, idiot," was my only response. With a slight laugh, the source of the voice moved to my side, slowly coming into my view. He was tall and thin, but he looked strangely familiar. I knew I should recognize him, but I didn't know why or from where. I studied his appearance for a few moments as he began to busy himself preparing various surgical instruments on a tray next to the bed I was tied to. When the idiot finished playing with his tools, he turned his attention back to me. He smiled at me with pure hatred. I stared back into his eyes. He straightened the smile and then removed the white coat he was wearing. When I saw what was underneath the coat, I couldn't help but choke. There were pieces of him missing wherever a piece had gone. Moss and small yellow three-petaled flowers grew. Not many, but they were there. I could see things moving underneath the moss, and his skin was pulsating. "Oh, you like it? Great, soon you'll have some just like mine." He laughed as he shoved one hand deep into his abdomen and pulled it out, holding several things that looked like worms or snakes. They squirmed against his grip and even seemed to try to bite him, but his grip never faltered. When he started bringing the wriggling things closer to my body, I screamed. Loud. So loud that I tasted blood in the back of my throat. Again, I fought against my restraints, this time feeling them stretch and begin to tear, even if slightly. I forced against them once more and managed to tear one off my right arm. I managed to use my newly freed arm to push his hand away and was lucky enough to scatter the things in his grip. When those things fell to the floor, the buzzing reached a new level of pain. Now, it was a physical sensation of vibration. I moved my free hand against the restraint holding my left arm and managed to free it as well. The half-man, half-plant thing rushed to the ground where the worm-like things were wriggling. He fell to the floor and desperately tried to grab all the things. The buzzing increased in tempo, and at that moment I knew for sure that it was a voice, screaming at the thing on the floor. I continued my struggle to break free from the leather straps holding me to the table. I managed to free my head and one more leg when I heard heavy footsteps coming from above. Not knowing who or what was coming made the whole situation much, much worse. I struggled to free my other leg, and as soon as I did, I rolled off the table and hit the floor. Hard. I quickly scrambled to hide behind a nearby ceramic vase and waited to see who was coming down the stairs. I felt relieved when I saw Cooper, a deputy sheriff, and Detective Tolson coming down the stairs. Before they were fully at the bottom of the steps, I yelled to them that there was a guy on the floor in the middle of the room and he was armed and dangerous. Tolson jumped the last few steps, and fired 3 shots at the thing crouching on the floor before entering the basement room. I got up and searched for my clothes, and when I couldn't find them, I tried to hide my things behind the gurney I was tied to. I explained to Tolson and Cooper what had happened and how I ended up swinging in the breeze. While I was talking to them, I heard someone thump their fat butt down the stairs and then heard the coroner's voice. "A little chilly, Sheriff? Choke on a stick and you'll find my damn uniform, please," I replied before finishing the description for the 2 officers. "So how did you know you should come here? I haven't been missing for that long." "Sheriff," Cooper began, "you've been missing for 33 hours. In fact, we came here yesterday to find you and no one was here. Just your car still at the entrance. Right before we showed up here today, Mrs. Thompson's nurse called and said that when she went to pick up her things, there were 2 vehicles at the entrance, and the locks had been changed. We hurried up and found a car at the entrance," Tolson continued. "We still couldn't find your car and your wife is very worried. The coroner couldn't find my clothes, my gun, or even my badge, but at least he brought me a jumpsuit from his car. We collected the evidence in the room, and when I threw dirt on another fetus, Tolson shouted, 'Damn Mandrake.' Well, not totally, but yes. During the investigation, we would find hundreds of diaries from the late Thompson, most describing how she was going to perfect a way to cultivate a new body for herself. Not a child, but a new body for her. She said several times that she had found someone who could transfer her into another body, but the new body could never have housed life before. I was just glad she didn't think of cutting a grown fetus out of a womb. Maybe she thought it wouldn't work. Hell, I don't know. I know that it was the day I bought my wife a CB base station and taught her how to use it. I would never be alone in the field again. An interesting discovery was made when examining the evidence from the basement. The restraint strap that held my right arm had been burned. Burned into the red, worn, and wrinkled skin, there was the imprint of a small child's hand. I think we all know what I believe happened. Okay, so this wasn't one of the best, but it needed to be told. I wanted you all to see that I had caught someone's attention in a good way, and this was just the first time she would save my ass.